I feel it's impossible not to address the issue of that trinity of Farage, Tommy Robinson, and Andrew Tate. I don't know who's the father, instigating or allegedly instigating the riots in the UK with their propagation of misinformation and half-truths, not least about the two-tier policing, the myth of civilian journalism, as well as the ethics of attributing responsibility for these events to these three individuals. Quite clearly, these three individuals are not held up as responsible in equal measure, and that, I think, may be a problem. We cannot avoid acknowledging the influence of these three people: Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage, and Andrew Tate, and their hangers-on like Richard Tice, the sort of Muppets in the corner, the glove puppets. These leaders have used their platforms to stoke fears and foment violence, and they don't need to do very much in order to do so. Just a look is enough. But a look is, a nod and a wink is all it takes. For instance, Tommy Robinson, despite being in Spain, actively encouraged riots in Southport through incendiary social media posts. His messages like, "The British have been pushed too far. This is on the government." These are not mere observations, but calls to action. This is coded language to people who are poised and ready, waiting to rush in, waiting like the beasts of hell. And his calls, his questions. What Tommy Robinson does is these statements, which seem quite bland in and of themselves. What Farage does is the questions, which seem quite bland in and of themselves, but both are speaking in a sort of cryptic way to a captive audience. They're not mere observations, but calls to action that resonate with their followers, leading to violence and chaos. Tommy Robinson's activities are not isolated. There's Andrew Tate with his substantial following. He's similarly shown distrust by dismissing official statements from authorities, suggesting they're part of a matrix trying to obscure the truth. There's only so many tablets you can take, and there's only so many colours you can identify in the film. Red, blue. I can never remember which one is supposed to be which, Andrew. It's a nonsense. I don't subscribe to the Andrew Tate philosophy. I go back to the original Greek and to the Republic and this distortion of truth through the eyes of Neo and the Matrix. I mean, who ever heard of a philosophy based on some sort of film franchise? Well, I think probably I live my philosophy based on Mary Poppins, so maybe I can't speak. But Nigel Farage. Now I'm mixing the names up, but who cares? Because it's rather like a jumble, a right-wing concatenation of names. Nigel Farage, now a much more mainstream figure, having been elected to Parliament, has also fueled these narratives and should be held responsible. His rhetoric, which questions whether truth is being hidden from the public, subtly legitimizes the right wing's conspiratorial thinking. There is no conspiracy. There is no great theory. There isn't a simple answer. I don't know how long we have to keep banging that one on the drum. The significant aspect of the far-right narrative is the claim to one solution and two-tiered policing, which suggests a disparity in how law enforcement treats different ethnic groups or political groups. This belief has been amplified by leaders like Robinson and Farage, who claim that white working-class communities are unfairly targeted compared to other groups. They point to instances where police were perceived to be more lenient during Black Lives Matter protests, taking the knee in cases involving ethnic minorities. This narrative conveniently ignores the complexities of the situations and the sheer numbers of black people who are arrested by the police. The claim of two-tier policing is based on selective and distorted interpretations of events. For example, while some protests have seen less police intervention due to strategic reasons, others, like the Southport riots, required a robust response due to the immediate threat of violence. Yes, I question the sheer numbers of police who turned up in Leeds to deal with the social services and taking into care the Roma child. I thought it was excessive. I thought it was provocative, and I think it proved so to be. But the reality is far more nuanced than the binary depiction offered by these far-right twits. Farage, Tommy Robinson, and Andrew Tate. And of those three, Tommy Robinson is the one who seems to get the majority of the flack, and I think he's the most irrelevant. He is no longer relevant because he has become an icon of himself. I mean, he can barely string a sentence together. He comes across as affable, quite sweet, quite good-natured. He doesn't deserve the sort of police and legal pursuit that he's got. In fact, that police and legal pursuit gives him credibility, which, frankly, he doesn't deserve. I would love to have a cup of tea with Tommy Robinson. I would love to have a chat with Tommy Robinson. I see no problem with Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson is no longer important. There's two Tommy Robinsons. There's the Tommy Robinson, the individual, who is insignificant. Sweet boy. And there's the Tommy Robinson, the concept, who cannot be controlled. He's an idea. Not so dissimilar to Andrew Tate, but Andrew Tate is a significantly more wily performer, and Andrew Tate is still finessing and manipulating his image. As indeed is Farage. Farage is a sort of caterpillar of change. He's this vermicular slime oozing out of every pore, changing his message with the changing narrative that he perceives. And people say, why do I do a Dick Van Dyke imitation of Farage? I don't, by the way. I don't. I do an imitation of Cary Grant as imitated in the film Some Like It Hot. And it's got nothing to do with Dick Van Dyke. So, I've explained all this in the past. So people in the comment section who talk about me pretending that Farage has got a Dick Van Dyke voice, he hasn't. He's got a Cary Grant voice as imitated in Some Like It Hot. So do your film history. Check these things out, because my little indulgence has a pedigree and has a point of reference. So the rise of civilian journalism, as seen with platforms like Urban Scoop, further complicates the landscape. These platforms often lack rigorous editorial standards, leading to the spread of unchecked or false information. So the basic principle with journalism is that you have two sources. Even if you want to claim that Putin is dead and in a Smeg fridge, you have two sources. I have those two sources, by the way. I have three sources for Putin's death, as well as my own observation that the person who I see today is not the person I met in 2016 or 2015, whenever it was. So I think I have enough sources to claim that the Putin we see now is not real. And even then, I doubt, and I'm open about my doubt that I might be wrong. But at the same time, I'm amused by the story, and I think it's an amusing story, and it yields a rather entertaining cartoon that I put on mugs. Those mugs will be available within the week, by the way. And you'll be able to get mugs of Mr. Putin in the Smeg fridge. You'll be able to get mugs of the Jacob Rees-Mogg, or the Jacob Rees mug, Sir Jacob Rees mug, and Give Harry a Hug mug, and Suella Braverman, Suella Deville mug with extra Dalmatians, and I think there's a Farage in a little cardboard boat waving a flag. And there's there's one of Matt Hancock coming out of the stationery coming out of the stationery cupboard, but it's more of a stationery drawer. Give me the drawers and let's have an HB pencil with a rubber on it. Ooh. So there's plenty of those mugs coming out probably within the week, and I will market them on YouTube. I should have been doing it about 4 months ago when they were first designed, and I'm sorry there's been a delay, and I'm sorry there's been miscommunication there. But these things will be out. Who are we talking about? Urban Scoop. Oh yes, Urban Scoop. And so while Woodhouse's own history as a victim of child sexual exploitation might lend her credibility in some areas, her involvement with Robinson's platform raises questions about the objectivity and accuracy of her reporting. This situation underscores the principle of corroboration in journalism, which is often disregarded in these alternative media circles, though who wants to stop extra information? Extra information, extra opinion is good. It clarifies the opinion that you've got. The question of responsibility, though, is complex. So while Tommy Robinson is often singled out due to his visibility and accessibility, it's crucial to recognise that figures like Farage and Tate are equally culpable, if not more so. Farage's polished public persona and his chameleon-like ability to change and respond to situations, to duck and dive and say, "Well, you've not understood. You've not understood." The charismatic resonance of that man. Charisma, remember, charisma is often a word which is used in English to suggest today somebody who is attractive and liked. That's not what the word means. The word is about somebody who projects a spirited performance, and Farage definitely does that. Farage is charismatic, as is Tommy Robinson, as is Tate. I'm not saying that because they're charismatic they're good. In fact, quite the opposite. Hitler was charismatic. Churchill was charismatic. There is a difference. And somebody can be charismatic and not necessarily a good person. Somebody can be charismatic and a good person. Sometimes the office brings with it its own charisma, like Prime Minister or Pope or Queen or King. Sometimes the people who inhabit those offices rise to the stature of the office. Sometimes they don't, Liz Truss. The charisma allows people to spread their message. And in the case of Farage and Tate and Robinson, it's a message of distrust and division with a veneer of, in the case of Farage, the respectability conferred by political office and by a seat in the House of Commons, along with Richard Tice and his other unnamed five henchmen, 5 horsemen. The tendency to focus blame solely on Robinson oversimplifies the problem. I think it's essential to look at the broader ecosystem of far-right influence, which includes mainstream political figures and social media influencers. As Sadiq Khan said, there's no place for criminality on our streets, yet the narrative pushed by these figures continues to frame law enforcement actions as criminal. And they want the police when they want them. They don't want them when they don't want them. The police are not at their call. The role of far-right leaders in inciting recent riots and spreading misinformation is clear, it's troubling, it's wrong. And the narratives of these individuals, built on distorted truths, outright falsehoods, have profound implications for public trust, social cohesion, and the sense of what in future people will believe. The myth of two-tier policing and the rise of civilian journalism further complicates the landscape. It doesn't mean that all these things are wrong. I'm a great fan of anybody taking up the role of journalism. It's a good thing. We need more GB News, not less, but we need a greater spread of different types of independent journalism. Only by having that breadth of information can we start to discern ourselves the difference between truth and propaganda. And as we move forward, there isn't one organization that is the repository of truth. It doesn't exist. I may mean to tell you the truth. I don't have it. I don't know it. The truth is something like a scientific fact, which has to be tested by practice. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't get it right. Sometimes it's half right. Doesn't mean everything is wrong. But you've also got these people who are putting forward an agendum which is utterly wrong, and they know it's wrong. And as we move forward, it's crucial to critically evaluate the sources of our information, to recognize the broader network of individuals responsible for stoking division and mistrust and unrest. And only through a comprehensive understanding of these dynamics can we begin to address the root causes of the disintegration of our society, the collapse of our society, and the need and the means to rebuild our society.